problems?
I'm not exactly sure, but are we supposed to use video, or is it just audio?
Oh, I thought we were doing... He said we can use video, and we could even, like, show something on the screen if we wanted to. I guess he'll give us, like, the hosting power during our time, but...
So, okay, so that's fine. So you can go over there and they can take your picture and, not doing anything. They can take your picture and if you give them your email, they can help you set up an aboutme.com profile.
Yeah, so go over and do that, and you can have your professional profile picture taken, and yeah, that's cool. Then also, we wanted to let you know that we do believe that all TeenTechSF events should be free. It's part of our equal access policy. But we wanted to let you know that it costs about $5 per person to run these events. So if you are able to, we would very much appreciate it if you could make a donation, maybe to cover your costs, maybe less, just to help with whatever you have. Or if you make a donation of $25 or more, we do have these amazing TeenTechSF t-shirts, which you can then take home with you. And if you don't have money with you, because I know that I'm a teenager and I never have any money on me, you can ask your parents, just text them, call them, anything, and let them know that if they go on the Eventbrite page on which you registered, they can make an online donation there, and then you can just prove to us that they made the donation and go home with your t-shirt. So that's that. All right, thank you guys. Okay, get back to the phone. Thank you. 。
is Marker Bear Wong. Last spring, I founded TeenTechSF. We've had an amazing launch here, and I want to take a moment to tell you a little bit more about TeenTechSF, recap some highlights of the past year, and share some upcoming events. TeenTechSF is an interactive tech community for teens to innovate, collaborate, and create. Run by and for teens, all events are free. TeenTechSF's goal is to inspire and empower the next generation of tech innovators. We are committed to equal access to tech for all youth because diversity fuels innovation. Young or old, rich or poor, from all countries and beliefs. You never know who will have the next great idea. The most innovative ideas are created through collaboration among individuals with diverse perspectives. During the TeenTechSF launch event, over 100 students from schools all over the Bay Area connected with 27 leaders from Apple to Zynga, creating 14 new apps. TeenTechSF also received a certificate of honor from the San Francisco Mayor's Office of Innovation for engaging youth in tech. Throughout the year, TeenTechSF members participated in events at the Exploratorium, Stanford University's Virtual Reality Lab, and at the San Francisco Main Library. Tech leaders from Twitter's CEO, Dick Costolo, speaking at the World Affairs Council immediately after the successful IPO, to Piggybacker CEO, Andrea Lowe, who partnered with TeenTechSF to provide a crowdsourcing platform for even the youngest entrepreneurs, shared their advice with TeenTechSF. The highlight of the year was the TeenTechSF Fall Conference on the mindset of innovation. TeenTechSF brought together speakers and breakout session leaders from the fields of science, education, business, sports, and the arts to talk about how technology is a game changer and how the mindset of innovation has changed the world. After viewing WizKids, Marcus Wartikawiak, director of the Randall Museum Science Fair, and Madeline Saeed, a Stanford student and Science Buddies mentor, encouraged the next generation of science and tech innovators to design their own world-changing scientific research project. Then Oracle Team USA took center stage. Tom Emin and Joseph Ozan explained the technology behind Oracle Team USA's epic comeback of 8 straight wins in the 34th America's Cup, right here in San Francisco Bay. The keynote address took place at Runway, a startup incubator. Founder and veteran entrepreneur and venture capitalist Alan Young shared his advice on being the youngest person in the room as he welcomed us to the cool and creative space he has created. On the TeenTechSF 2014 wish list, upcoming events include a trip across the bay to an open makerspace, a global conference with partners in China, France, and Peru, and a visit at the World Affairs Council with Thomas Friedman, author of The World is Flat. Finally, I'd like to thank all the brilliant, creative, and generous individuals who have given their time and talents to help support TeenTechSF and the next generation of innovation. Here's to many exciting opportunities to innovate, collaborate, and create in 2014. more information about how you can get involved with TeenTechSF and to receive the latest news about events and activities, please visit our website and like us on Facebook.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark River Wong, and I'm the founder of TeenTechSF and the TeenTech Global Chair. I wanted to welcome everyone to the inaugural TeenTech Global Youth Summit. Run by and for teens, our goal at TeenTechSF and TeenTech Global is to empower the next generation of tech innovators. We're committed to equal access to tech resources and opportunities for all youth because diversity fuels innovation. Since launching, TeenTechSF has connected more than 500 students with tech leaders from Apple to Zynga. Today, we're going global and hope to double that number in a single event. Our program begins with a warm welcome from our global partners from around the world. First, a special message from Jean-Christophe Debert, a general of the Mission Laïque Française. Founded in 1902, the MLF is a Paris-based network of 120 schools in 48 countries. Today, the MLF continues to support French language and culture using the tech tools of the digital age.
Il y a 6 mois à Saragosse, nous accueillions Mission Laïque Française, notre premier congrès sur le numérique à l'école. Et parmi tous nos invités, ils étaient nombreux, il y avait Marc Robert Wong. Il en profitait pour nous convier tous pour le 18 octobre à sa rencontre annuelle du TeenTechSF. Un réseau global, un réseau mondial, qui va dans quelques jours réunir tout ce monde scolaire qui le convie à réfléchir sur son avenir, sa participation au monde d'aujourd'hui. C'est Marc Robert Wong qui nous disait « Nous sommes la nouvelle génération, nous habitons le numérique ». C'est un très beau slogan, nous nous l'approprions. Et je souhaite à cette réunion à la fois toute la fraîcheur, l'enthousiasme de ce qu'il nous disait à l'époque et qui va animer cette grande rencontre annuelle à laquelle nous serons présents avec nos 120 établissements.
Great. Now I'd like to introduce Jane Camblin, who's the executive director from the United Nations International School in New York. She's calling in from Istanbul to share her support and enthusiasm for this project. Jane Camblin is a trailblazer in academics and in life. She planted the seed for this collaboration between the United Nations School and TeenTechSF to partner in today's global event.
Good evening, everybody. It's 7 p.m. where I am, and it's a great pleasure and profoundly exciting to be calling in and being part of this inaugural TeenTech Global Conference. I'd like to thank first Mark for inviting me and congratulate you on your amazing success in bringing this to life over the last several years. And also congratulate all the other students around the world who have participated to make this work. It's a wonderful example of partnerships between students and the professional world and leveraging student autonomy and student initiative in service of creating connections and actually forging together a better world in service of all our goals. Right now I see that you're all at a sweet spot of determination and innovation and courage and risk, and you don't need us educators in the way. We're happy to be servers at this event and happy to support you, and so pleased that this is actually taking off. Istanbul right here is a city where many cultures and two continents meet. And I think that might be a grand metaphor for what you're trying to do today. Perhaps in the future you can include some schools and students from the region, which as you know is not stable, is highly volatile right now, and can probably benefit from the many connections that you can provide and the collaborations and the empathy and support that you can provide student to student out here. So again, in closing, I thank you for welcoming me, and I wish you a wonderful conference and look forward to hearing all about it when I get back.
Great, thanks a lot. Now we're going to hear from two of Jane's students at the United Nations International School in New York. Tim and Ruth are the co-founders of TeenTech New York.
Hey guys, hello world. This is Ruth, Tim, and Andre. We're co-founders of TeenTech New York. We are incredibly excited to be part of this global initiative. Let's take it.
Our inaugural conference has been going really well so far. Almost 100 attendees have enjoyed 2 workshop sessions already, led by professionals from Ubisoft, American Express, and our host Microsoft, along with many more.
We can already see our guests being inspired by the discoveries they've made, the friends that they've met, skills that they're learning here.
So cheers to a wonderful conference. Have a lot of fun in San Francisco.
See you guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. Now we're going to check in with Michael Roizen in Seattle at the Bush School, and he's the founder of TeenTech Washington.
Hi, Tech community. I'm Michael Roizen. I go to the Bush School in Seattle, and today I'm very excited to be representing TeenTech Washington in the first ever TeenTech Global Youth Summit. There's a fairly large group of students in the upper school at Bush, including me, who enjoy a broad range of tech-related activities. I'm personally into developing iOS apps, and other members of TeenTech Washington have developed 3D video games and other such projects. Currently, we are working on starting a programming club, and I'm very excited to see what we will accomplish in the future. Thank you for including TeenTech Washington in the Global Youth Summit, and I wish you a great conference. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Lastly, we're checking in with Chip Moreland in Moldova and the Moldova Technovation team. A Silicon Valley native, Chip is volunteering with the Peace Corps, and he coached a Technovation team of Tatiana, Mihaela, Karina, and Maria from a small village in Moldova to an exciting and well-deserved 2014 Technovation World Pitch win at Microsoft.
Hello, we are Maria and Tanya and Mihaela. We are from the Republic of Moldova.
We participated in Technovation Challenge last year and took first place. Now we are in the process of building of our application.
And I'm Chip Moreland. Like Mark said, a Peace Corps volunteer. I led these wonderful girls through the Technovation curriculum last year. And with the money that we won from Technovation, we have begun the process of building our application, Aquamea. Yes, for those of you who were paying attention before, we did change the name. It was Aquapora, and now we're Aquamea. But this application will inform people about contaminants in the water at the wells they drink, and will help them learn how to treat the water to prevent future health problems. We're hoping to coordinate our efforts with organizations that build infrastructure and tackle the root problem of unpotable water so that we can improve the quality of life for many. This victory was not only something fantastic for these girls, but also for Moldova, which is making a name for itself in the IT world with a quickly emerging industry here. The interest in IT is also highlighted by the fact that Moldova had 8 of the 17 total teams competing from Europe last year. This year we hope to double that number. A group of Peace Corps volunteers and Moldovans have started an aggressive marketing campaign and are organizing a series of trainings and events for mentors and participants alike. We're really happy to participate in this event. It's a really cool thing you guys have going on, connecting the youth around the world. La Revedere.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Great, thanks a lot. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Gaurav Khanna from Cisco for setting up the WebEx conference. You'll be hearing more about Technovation and also from Gaurav later in the program. Now we'd like to thank Mr. Saeed Amidi for generously opening the doors of Plug and Play, Forbes Silicon Valley Tech Accelerator of the Future, to the TeenTech Global Youth Summit. Mr. Amidi is the visionary behind Plug and Play, which has become Silicon Valley's premier tech startup accelerator, having raised $3 billion in capital with offices in California, Germany, Brazil, Russia, Singapore, Spain, and Canada. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Saeed Amidi.
Thank you so much, Mark. First, let me welcome you to Plug and Play. And I was wondering how many of you know what is Plug and Play? Great. At least some of you have checked it out. These days, when I meet someone or want to meet someone, it's so easy to check them out on LinkedIn and social network. And I really recommend to you guys doing that before you come to a place, because you get a lot more out of it. But let me give you like a little bit of a high level what we do at Plug and Play. We receive approximately 300 startups per year, and the founders look exactly like you. Usually they walk in to Plug and Play, they are 2 founders with a great idea and a lot of passion, and they are smart. they have probably been to MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, or Carnegie Mellon. But let me give you one of these examples. I had Renaud and Joaquin walking to Plug and Play about 6 years ago. They told me that we are going to build a bank. It's going to be peer-to-peer. It's not going to have any branches. And we're going to process loans for between people like Stanford alums for Stanford students. And these two guys were really smart. Joaquin had studied in Japan, got his PhD in Japanese, but he was actually from Argentina. And Renaud was a French national that had emigrated here, and they had worked before building a company. But fast forward, they were able to raise about $1.7 million seed round. And then I introduced them to Jeff Crow of Norwest, is one of these venture capital firm that is backed by Wells Fargo. And they raised $10 million. Just last month, they filed to go IPO, initial public offering, at $5 billion valuation. So they are raising $500 million at $5 billion valuation. And I have Deutsche Bank, Bank of America coming on Monday. Nobody can believe that they were able to build this bank, and they do everything online and on mobile. And lately they process about $300 million worth of loan every quarter. So let me tell you why I said this story. I think I have the best job in the world. When I was inspired to do Plug and Play is because I was in Palo Alto on University Avenue, and I saw Larry and Sergey come to our little building. Again, they are no special than you guys in the audience. And I had the front seat, like you guys sitting in the front, to see them build Google and change the world. I had Peter Thiel. How many of you use PayPal? So I had Peter Thiel and Max Levchin, two people, come and rent office space from my brother. And my brother, while negotiating the lease, agreed to do half of the lease amount invested into their seed round. Until today, it has been one of our best investments. How many of you use Dropbox? So when Drew and Arash, we met them, they were two people. They were part of Y Combinator. And then we invited them, actually, like you see me, I'm going to go play golf. But that Saturday, we had a barbecue. So one of our colleagues invited them to the barbecue. We loved them. We loved their passion. Arash is an Iranian immigrant, sort of like me. And they were smart, they were passionate, and they built Dropbox. Right now, more than 300 million people use it. So I want to conclude with this. I've been lucky to be part of 2,000 startups. We help 300 startups per year who come here to build their dream. But if you guys have a dream, you just have to go for it. And you live in the best part of the world, because a lot of people here can support you. You can take internship. I really recommend you guys working for one of our startups for a month this summer. It would change your whole life, your whole perception. And again, why I love my job, I used to read about Google, Dropbox, Lending Club, but right now I feel I'm part of the game. I am involved with them, and more importantly, along the way I make a little money as well. So the money is not the most important thing, but it is measure of success. And if I was here and telling you, like these volunteers, I'm gonna do this just for love, I would be lying. So in general, I would love you guys to dream big. Find a co-founder. You need to have 1 or 2 people who share the dream with you, and then you can be the next Google or the next Dropbox. I really wish you guys great success, and thank you for the opportunity to host you. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to welcome Gaurav Khanna to the stage. Gaurav is a 14-year veteran of Cisco systems, and he's going to give an exciting talk about future trends in technology.
Good morning, everybody. This is working? Okay. Thank you, Mark, for allowing me to present today at this wonderful conference. So I want to talk a little bit today, and it's Saturday morning, so expect to hear a few questions from me. Some of you guys are in school, so should be used to it. I want to talk about some buzzwords you might be hearing today when listen to the news or read the paper. Mobility, cloud, Internet of Everything. What do all these mean? And I want to walk you through in the next 20 minutes or so some of the evolution of these technologies. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of history. 2007, Macworld Expo, San Francisco, not too far from here. Some of you are stuck coming from there. Question, why was this significant, the introduction of the iPhone? Anybody? Just shout it out. Come on. Why was this significant? It changed the world. Yes, there you go. A protege of Steve Jobs right there. Changed the world. Anybody else? Why was the device significant? There were smartphones. People used BlackBerries. You could do apps on those. You could check email. The iPod was already out. You know, you could surf the web on smart devices. Why was this significant? Touchscreens, okay. You're getting there. Okay, so in the interest of time, let me tell you what I think was one of the most significant things about this. While all of these devices were around, Apple combined them into one. That's what Steve Jobs said. Are you guys getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is all one. But it made the consumption of the video, the applications, and everything that you used really compelling on a mobile platform. So it wasn't that, hey, you know, I'll surf the web on my phone, but it kind of stinks. Let me just go home and I'll get the real experience on my desktop. Or, you know, I'll just kind of kludge together a message really quickly on my BlackBerry, but I'll be able to write a real email when I get home. That changed. And that was significant. Because what it did, now, you know, this is Apple, this is Steve Jobs. They'll tell you, like you mentioned, you know, change the world. In fact, what it did was serve as a catalyst. It served as a catalyst for an era that was already underway. And it just took it to another level. It really did change the game. Okay? And now, you know, not too long later, guys, this was only 7 years ago, not too long later, we have really, truly entered what a lot of people are calling the post-PC era. And we have really become untethered. And this is really the critical thing. People are writing for the mobile platforms first, and maybe only for those platforms instead of the desktop platforms. Okay? Because that is where the consumption is, that is where the growth is, that is where the people are. And it's not anymore that you read the New York Times website that's, you know, the website for the laptop or the computer, and it's squeezed down into the mobile phone. The New York Times has written an app where you can read the news, and that experience is a lot of times, for many people, better than reading it on a computer. Same thing with applications. Same thing with a lot of things. Mobile applications can just be beautiful, some of them. And I'm sure a lot of you use some of these, and they're actually, some of them are quite addictive. Okay, so we have become now, just a short years later after the mobile revolution started, we have now become untethered. Okay, another question. I can see, I'm guessing there's some math and engineering majors. Anybody know what this is? 10 to the power 21? Shout it out. No? Okay. This is a zettabyte. It is 1 billion terabytes. Okay? And so now the zettabyte era is upon us. So part of this mobile revolution led to this point. Now let me just give you some context. So some of you may not be able to remember 1992. I think some of the parents in the back might. So in 1992, when I was in college, there was about 100 gigabytes of traffic on the internet every day. That's about the size of my photo library on my computer. That was the amount of information across the entire internet in 1992. Okay? A short while later, we went from 100 gig a day to 100 gig per second, or excuse me, in 1997 we went to about 100 gig per hour on the internet, and soon after that 100 gig per day. By 2018, we're getting to 50,000 gig per second on the internet. 5,000 times more than what we had just a generation ago. Okay? And here's the key point to take away. Most of this traffic is coming from mobile devices, not from your laptops and not from your desktops. And here's the key thing. The reason why a lot of this traffic is exploding is because most of it is video. That is becoming the default way we talk now, is over video. I remember a time, just during my time at Cisco, most of the conferences would be phone calls. We'd call each other. And now, most of us, partly because we're a company that actually makes the stuff, we just, even just a phone call, hey, how you doing? How did that meeting go? That's just a video call. Okay, and that's a wonderful thing, in my opinion. And it's a wonderful trend, and it can happen now on the mobile devices. And remember what I said, that mobile experience is no longer compromised. The video on these devices, the touch screen and the retina display, all of these things make it incredibly compelling. Okay, so we've become untethered, and that experience is actually pretty good. Okay, but it raises a whole host of problems, right? That zettabyte is not a small number. Okay, so what's going on? So we untether the people, we go to an era of mobility, okay? What we now also have to do is all the stuff that's bringing us this video, all the stuff that's bringing us these apps that we use, that also has to become untethered, okay? If you want to update your Facebook status on, if you're in the South China Sea or in the South Pacific, wouldn't it be nice if some part of Facebook were nearby you so you could have that interaction and have it be fast? You know, it's the experience you would get if you were updating your Facebook status around here. Okay? Untether the people. The next step is untether the applications. And that leads to a really key technology that's the foundation of a lot of things that's making all this stuff possible for us, and that's called virtualization. Now again, the iPhone didn't create this world. What it did was usher in and make these technologies that were already around that much more significant, to the point where everybody had to start adopting this. And the first is virtualization. Now here's virtualization very simply, and I promised I wouldn't go into too much detail technically, but it was actually, the concept is very simple, okay? Traditionally, you have a hardware on the left. You can see you have hardware, you have one operating system, and on the operating system you run a few applications, okay? Everything is tied together. You get a server, it comes with that operating system, and then you install the apps. But what if you could now partition that server or that computer so that you could run multiple operating systems? Okay, and those multiple operating systems run multiple applications. All of a sudden, hopefully you can see, you're making much better use of that thing on the right. That same hardware can now run multiple things. The guy on the left there, you could run things, but there was a lot of processing space that was idle. It wasn't really being used, and it was just sitting there at your home. You couldn't do anything about it. But now you can start to divvy things up. Okay, a great example is, I run this on my, what you can see is a Macintosh operating system, and within it, you're running Windows 8. Some would question why you're running Windows when you got a Mac, but we'll leave that aside. But you can see that that's a perfect example of virtualization. Okay, you're running one operating system on a hardware. Okay, and by the way, you could run Ubuntu, you could run Linux, whatever you want. Okay, so virtualization is untethering the apps. But we can take it a step further. Okay, what if computer hardware, server hardware, it breaks? Okay, we're not perfect, we make things that break. So check out on the left what happens. You have some application or something that's mission critical in a company. It's running on a blade, on a server. That blade breaks, it has a hardware failure. What if you could just move that application to another blade? It's part of what virtualization allows you to do. Now, look at this thing here. ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning application. This could be like an HR application, something that tracks attendance in a school, something that tracks workers and all of that stuff. All of a sudden, this runs out of capacity, running out of space. What do we do? In the old days, we'd have to build a new server, and it takes days, and install the app, and do all of that. What if we could just move this guy to another server where there's more capacity? This happens in seconds, not days. Okay, remember, all of you decide to go in the South Pacific for a vacation, and you're all updating your Facebook status. Facebook has to somehow move that resource closer to you. That's how it happens, and I'll touch on that a bit more in a minute. Okay, so virtualization is a very important story, and where a lot of these things reside, what I just showed you about these things moving around, is in places called data centers. Now, these are not usually pretty buildings that you see as you're driving up Highway 101. These are these brick buildings. They don't even have tags sometimes, and hold away sometimes in places you've never heard of. But these are massive, massive facilities that host the stuff that's coming to you on your phone. And we actually passed a tipping point. A lot of data centers were set up that traditional way I showed in a picture before, where there was kind of servers and one application running on each server. A few years ago, we passed a tipping point where actually more data centers are starting to be virtualized, being able to move stuff around within the data center than they are non-virtualized. And that is significant. Again, keep in mind why we're covering this, right? This is all to be able to deliver this wonderful mobile world to you. It had to happen in the background. All right, so we untether the people, we get mobility. We untether the applications, we get virtualization. What if we untethered the data center itself, these facilities, okay, and the workloads that they do to get you that wonderful stuff? What if we untethered those? And that's what really the cloud is about. Okay, so when you hear about cloud and it's a cloud thing and your data's in the cloud and intercloud, that's what we're really talking about. We're untethering this facility that's bringing you this wonderful stuff. Okay, so you can see a little bit of the evolution here. We have the workload and then the virtualization, and we have VDC here. This acronym stands for Virtualized Data Center. And the analogy I want to use here is these providers, Amazon, Microsoft, Cisco, some of these providers are building these massive facilities. They're actually getting companies to come in as tenants. So your startup could be a tenant on this data center, but they have additional capacity. They're not going to build a separate building for the next company. What they're going to do is just add another apartment, and another company comes along and they become a tenant. Okay? So this concept of tenancy in a data center is what's helping scale all of this. Okay? And here's some examples of things that live in these virtualized data centers. Maybe you guys are familiar with some of these apps. In fact, we're using 3 of them. I'm using 3 of them today: WebEx, Dropbox. I took a few pictures here. It automatically uploads to my Dropbox account. And Evernote is how I take notes for this presentation. And I did it at home. I got it on my phone. So, okay, and there are obviously thousands more. But these apps, this is where they live. All right, so just really quickly again, you'll hear things like public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud. You know, people love to confuse everybody and sound really smart. Really, it's all the same thing. Essentially, that you're a tenant in this vast space. The cool thing about this is you can kind of move around. Remember, we're untethering everything. So you can move, you can have a private cloud in your own company, you can host all your stuff, you run out of space, your choices are, let me build a whole new data center, wow, that's expensive. Hey, Amazon, you have room, maybe I can host part of my cloud with you. And now moving parts of your data center around to these different clouds is what leads to this concept of intercloud. Okay, so like I said, Amazon, Microsoft, Cisco, a bunch of different companies. This is a very new market. So they're basically setting up so you can host your own thing. You can host your own data center. You run out of room, come to us. And they make a lot of money. In fact, a lot of people took notice. Jeff Bezos, not too long ago, said their business, Amazon Web Services, which hosts tons and tons of startups in some of these apps, he actually thinks this business will be bigger than retail. I mean, that was a holy cow moment for a lot of people. I mean, we all know how big Amazon is retail. He thinks this is going to be bigger. Okay, we've untethered people, we've untethered the apps, now we've untethered the entire workload and the data center, the holy grail. Now we're going to connect the unconnected. And that's only possible because of this world that we're building, okay? And that is the concept of the Internet of Everything. Okay, it may not sound, when people mention it, they don't necessarily think it's related to all of this. Hopefully this is showing you this is all part of an evolution. Now, 99% of the things in the world are not connected to anything. Remember, all along we've been talking about moving these workloads and these data centers and this cloud and all of that. At the end of the day, it's still feeding this thing, right? It's still feeding stuff that we see on here. Don't mind the cracked screen. I'm getting a new one soon. But there's things around us that if they were connected could provide incredibly valuable information to make things happen. The best example are things like smart cities. You could have sensors in traffic lights that detect how many cars are coming and going, and it can adjust the traffic accordingly, really helping kind of ease the traffic. Barcelona is a city that's a smart city. They have sensors everywhere for parking and for this and that, and it has really helped in just the civic life. And just, there are many examples of this, but this is really the concept. You can asset tracking, you can do millions of things if you can now connect things that are unconnected. But that's 99% of the world, okay? There's a massive, massive opportunity here. The thing that's going to happen, the reason why everything I mentioned is important, is because now if everything is connected, you need to be able to all that untethering that was going on, that needs to happen even more, because now all of a sudden in Barcelona, there's tons of data coming from smart sensors. Well, we have to move the workload and the compute capacity to Barcelona. How do we do it? Well, do we build a massive building at a data center there, or move workloads around, or what if they need more? So the process and that world we have built for our mobile devices will be instrumental in making this happen, which is connecting the unconnected, the Internet of Things. Now, there's a lot of hype around Internet of Things, or Internet of Everything. I'll be the first to admit it. But I actually believe this number, 14 trillion. Anybody know what I'm talking about here? This is the last point I'll make. 14 trillion. What does this represent? The dollar sign should give it away. The market size of Internet of Everything. Anybody know how big the US economy is, GDP? 16, 17 trillion. Wow, good. We are now in the process of creating an economy the size of the United States, the largest economy in the world by far, with this. The opportunity with the Internet of Everything is this big. And here's the key point I want you to all leave with. This space is wide open for you. This is too big. Just like no company dominates the US economy, just like no company dominates really any economy of this size, there's no company that's going to dominate this. Or if there is, that company hasn't showed up yet. There are tons of small companies, wonderful startups out there that are rushing into this space. And this is bigger than the internet is, because 99% of the stuff out there is not connected. So if you're all looking for something to do, I got something for you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Gaurav. So next, I'd like to welcome our keynote speaker, George Saines. George is the founder and CEO of both CodeCombat and Skritter. CodeCombat is at the leading edge of the how to code movement, teaching players to code in JavaScript in a video game format, while Skritter teaches the ancient art of Chinese calligraphy using digital age techniques.
Clicker. All right. Hello, everyone. So I was initially going to start this talk off by just telling you that I want you all to learn a little bit of programming, but we can get into that in a moment. Well, I guess what would be perhaps most helpful is telling you a little bit about how I got started doing companies and building them. Because it wasn't so long ago, at least it feels like that for me, that I was attending talks and like reading Paul Graham essays and participating in entrepreneurship kind of as a spectator. Started my, as Mark mentioned, I've founded 2 companies now, and I started without a technical background. No one even told me what computer programming was until I was about 20 years old. And you might think that that sounds kind of wild, but growing up in rural Ohio and the son of 2 non-technical parents, you don't hear about computer programming. I got my first computer when I was much older than anyone I can see here in the audience. All the kids here, you guys are much younger than I was when I got my first computer. So you can imagine, like, you're sitting around in rural Ohio and you bought this Windows computer that your dad got from California, and you're playing your video games. And it was a huge revelation when, in sophomore year of college, someone actually, taught me that there was a way to program the computers in a way to make the experience more personal. As in, like, someone somewhere was actually putting characters into a computer, and my games were coming. And this was a huge revelation. And it was shortly thereafter that that I started my first company and realized just how important it was to understand programming. So that was actually a little bit of what I wanted to start off with here, but come on. There we go. Okay. So that's me. I've lost a little weight. So the 2 companies that I've done so far are all in education, and the first one was teaching Chinese characters. If anyone here has learned Chinese or Japanese, we taught the writing portion. But what I'm most interested in today is about programming. And I really think that everyone in the audience, whether you're 10 years old or whether you're 50 years old, should learn a little bit of programming, and you should do it as soon as you can. Because programming, there's a lot of hype. If you listen to people in the Learn to Code movement, of which I guess I am a part now, there's a lot of hype that suggests that, if you learn programming, your life is going to change and you're going to have 5 Ferraris and you're going to live on the moon or something. I don't think it's that drastic, but I do think it's imperative. And I'm going to go through kind of the primary reason. I'll back up one moment. The primary reason is that creators are going to prosper. And they're going to prosper disproportionately in the future, because the more technology we have available at our fingertips, the more you can leverage your ability to create stuff. So that mobile phone in your pocket is, as we were just talking about, becoming the driver of productivity. So if you can learn to create, and the things that you can create on are increasingly integrated with the world, and we have this Internet of Things. 99% of things aren't connected right now, but they are going to be. If you can program that, you're going to become sort of like a wizard, because you'll be able to type things into a computer terminal, and things in the real world will happen. My co-founder's dad is the open source leader of a software package called Mr. House that can do things like open the windows and turn on the thermostat and open your doors and turn off the lights. And it's almost a little creepy how incredible his ability to control his world is. So creators prosper. And in the 21st century, programming skills are the ultimate creative ability. But a lot of adults won't tell you to program. And I'm going to go through 3 reasons why they won't, and I'm going to try and debunk them for you so that you know how important the skill is. What they're going to tell you, these are the 3 things. So, kind of paradoxically, the Learn to Code movement is all about, let's teach the kids to code. But kind of in our enthusiasm, most sensible adults have realized, whoa, wait a minute, actually programming is really tough. And unlike the zealots out there, it's actually really hard to learn to program, and it takes time. It's not something you can do in a weekend. You can create something small in a weekend, something meaningful, but you won't be learning the hard skills that are required to create the next thing. So one argument is that if you're not going to do it full time, well, why the heck do it at all? Like, let's teach people that are, let's teach them something a little bit more fuzzy, a little bit logical thinking or computational literacy, whatever you want to call it, because you're not going to be a full-time programmer, so don't worry about it. The next thing they're going to tell you is that learning to program isn't for you specifically, and this is sort of a controversial point, and I'm really happy that people are addressing it more. When I was learning to code, people would look at me and they'd say, oh, well, that kid can code because he is a certain kind of person. He's this white, nerdy dude. And I still am. But that's really toxic to the environment around this skill. And it's extraordinarily important that people understand that just because you're not a part of this little tiny niche, you don't look and behave like Mark Zuckerberg, you can't do it. It's absolute rubbish. And then there's this idea that perhaps math and science are programming. I'm going to debunk these one by one. So I call these kind of the myth of commitment, i.e. if you're not going to do it full time, don't do it at all. The myth of identity, that if you don't look and act like a certain kind of person, you can't do it. And then the myth of utility, which is that if you perhaps learn math or science, they have the same utility as learning to program. So let's start with the first one. This is sort of the logic that takes you through why, if you're not going to be a full-time programmer, you shouldn't learn to program. So I agree with the first 2 statements, which are that learning to program is really hard, and that there are dozens of skills that every kid should learn. I've learned to play a musical instrument. I learned calculus. I learned about the history of the United States and other countries in the world. These are all valuable things to have learned. But there is, if you're going to teach something else, it is sort of going to replace something that's existing in our curriculum. And this is really tough. It's very controversial because the things that we teach our children are a reflection of our society. And it's very tough to go in and tell someone like, oh, actually, American history, that's less important than programming. I'm not going to say that in this talk, but I do think programming is more important than a lot of the things I learned in middle school and high school. And so you take these 2 arguments together and you say, oh, well, I guess we shouldn't teach kids to do programming unless they're going to be full-time software engineers. And I think that's wrong. So I'm going to give you 3 real quick real-world examples of times in my life and those around me that we really could have learned to program. Like, it really would have been beneficial. So the first was when I had my first kind of like official summer internship between freshman and sophomore years of college. You're going to find, it's going to be kind of silly, but I was hired for $8 an hour to click on links that my employer had auto-generated with a script and check a box if the link was still good. I did that for 8 weeks. 8 weeks, 8 hours a day. I just clicked links, and if it was a 404, I unchecked a box. Now, you think about that for a moment. You're like, wait a minute. Is that really a productive use of someone's time? The answer is no. No, it isn't. It was silly. If my boss had sat down and said, we have this task. We need to check this list of 17,000 links to see whether or not all of them are good. But instead of teaching you how to uncheck a box because you're a dumb humanities major and I can't teach you anything, which is sort of what he told me, I'm going to teach you a little bit of Python scripting, and we're going to do this in like a week. That would have been a lot better use of his money and my time. So my mother is really interested in a historical reenactment. It's sort of like cosplay for adults. And in particular, she's interested in 18th century bonnets. Now, you might not think there's a lot to know about bonnets, but let me tell you, there is. And she wants to keep a database of all of the different sewing styles for all the different bonnet types and wants to run pivot queries against that database. Now, she's not a software engineer, but I guarantee you that she spends more time per year curating an Excel spreadsheet with all this data in it than it would take her to learn a little bit of SQL and run queries against it. And finally, my brother, which I'm going to talk briefly about in a few minutes, got his first job, and his employer asked him to query data across these gigantic Excel documents, and he didn't know how to do it. And so for many, many months, he spent hours and hours every day running manual queries to find data for his boss. Now, these are all, like, if you know programming, if you've learned CS, computer science, you'll know that these are all rudimentary examples that I could have been taught to do this in a week, maybe. Instead, I spent the rest of the summer. So, this is prime examples of where programming could have been extraordinarily useful. And as a result, I hope I made this point that you can really use programming even if you're not going to be a full-time programmer. So then we get to this kind of pervasive myth that you have to be a certain kind of person. And I want to tell you about a girl that I knew in college. Her name was Elizabeth. We were taking Computer Science 101 together. And Elizabeth I didn't know her well, but she and I were in the class. There were perhaps 20 people in this class, 2 of which were women. The rest of us were kind of your white nerdy men. In particular, there was one guy, I'm going to refer to him as Linux guy, even though we're not going to name him by name. But Linux guy was really obnoxious. He was the sort of kid that would like interrupt the professor while they were teaching and just show off how much he knew. He brought this huge computer to class and wouldn't use the school's computers because he thought he knew better. But most importantly, he created a sort of a toxic environment because he turned our computer science labs into sort of like a guy's locker room of humor. So we were kind of in the middle of the semester. I was struggling. As I mentioned, computer science is very hard. And Elizabeth was sort of breezing through these classes. I mean, she was doing it probably like twice as fast and twice as good as me. And I would sometimes come over and be like, "Hey, Elizabeth, how do I do this thing?" And she was always on top of it. But Linux guy was this pervasive force in our class. So we get to the end of the class. I scraped by. Elizabeth flew by, and I didn't see her for a while. And then at the time, she was a computer science major. 2 years later, I saw her. I was a junior at that point, and I saw her in the quad. And I said, "Oh, how's it going?" And she said that I asked how her computer science major was going, and she said that she'd changed from computer science to gender and women's studies. And I said, "Well, that makes no sense. Like, I was in class with you. You were like twice as good as everyone else, and you clearly enjoyed it. What happened?" And she said she didn't feel welcome, that it just didn't seem like her kind of thing. And I thought back, and it was just, makes you really angry. I felt, wow. Now, she didn't say Linux guy was the reason, but I looked back and I thought, wow, I can easily see how that sort of environment wouldn't have been comfortable for me if it had been inverted. I can see why some people get the idea that this is not their field. They're not comfortable here. And this is a huge problem because, as we were just talking about, if 99% of things in our world are going to be connected by programming, by computers, and we're deciding as a society that the 0.01% of our society gets to decide what those things do. Is that sensible? I hope that we can all agree not. We need more people with more perspectives to come in and create things. So, you don't have to be a nerdy guy like me to create stuff, and I certainly hope that people in our field are communicating that to young people. Then there's a third, and this is more, perhaps a little more academic, but I think that STEM skills are very valuable. I mean, obviously, you need to know a little bit of math, you need to know a little bit of science to be kind of a productive member, and especially if you're going to be creating things. But there is this idea that if you learn math and science, that they are equally useful to programming. And I just wanted to kind of refute this very briefly. So the experience that I've had and that my brother has had, my brother is several years younger and he's been out of college for less time. The industry wants engineers, not necessarily scientists. And 2 short stories. My brother graduated with a degree in physics. And while he was in his senior year, he called me up. I'd been out of school for 2 years. And he said, George, I've got a little bit of time in my schedule. What should I take? And I said, oh my gosh, Alex, learn programming. Just stop. Just learn programming, seriously. And he said, oh, okay, all right. And he didn't do it. So fast forward 1 year, and he's been unemployed for 3 months, and he's living in my parents' basement. Literally in the basement. And, I'm calling him, we're having our weekly chat, and he says, wow, George, everyone just wants programmers. And I didn't say I told him so, but shortly thereafter he learned VBR scripting and got his first job. Another one of my friends who I graduated with, and again a physics major, spent 5 years, he just last week finally made the transition at Google to being a software engineer. The point is that both of these guys, both my brother and my good friend, really sharp at math, really sharp at their respective fields, but they had trouble finding work because what people want are engineers, and what they want is programming. So you don't have to be a full-time engineer, you don't have to be a certain kind of person, and programming is different than science. So how do you do it exactly? That's a good question. I would tell you to go out and build things that matter to you, because ultimately that will be the driving force behind your learning. So what matters to you? Well, I had another friend, his name is Ben. He built a politics website in college, politics major, and he's now the senior web developer for the Huffington Post. A friend of mine was really interested in retro games, kind of a weird guy, and built an RPG, a top-down RPG in Visual Basic. I can't tell you what's important to you, but I can tell you that if you can think of something that you want to see in the world, that's the direction you should be going. Then you need to find a mentor, because getting stuck is frustrating and causes you to lose motivation. So find something you want to build, find someone that can help you build that thing, and go to it. And then, if you're interested, you can talk to me. I'd be happy to tell you. There are literally hundreds of websites and services and groups that are kind of being created to help people learn these skills. And I'd be happy to help you out. I blog and tweet all the time about stuff like this. If you follow CodeCombat, you're going to get that. If you're new to programming, play CodeCombat. It's intended for beginners. And then Google it, because that's how real programmers do it. So thank you very much. Learn a little programming. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, George. Now we'd like to welcome Brent Traidman to the stage for Ask Me Anything segment. Brent is a general partner with Phoenix Venture Capital. He's going to talk briefly about what a venture capitalist does and then open up the floor to questions from our partners on the global live stream or here in the audience. Chloe Evans, who's an important member of the TeenTech Global Leadership Team, will be moderating questions.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Wow, it's very bright up here. So thanks for having me, and for the folks that don't know what venture capital is, you'll hopefully learn that today. Quick show of hands, who knows or who has heard of venture capital? Okay. All right, challenge to the audience. Who can explain what it is in one sentence? Yes. Yep. Yeah, that's great. Yep, great. So that's pretty spot on. So what we've talked about today and what Saeed kind of said earlier is that there's a lot of companies out there. There's two people with a computer, right? And to accelerate that growth really rapidly and quickly, you need capital behind that, capital, money, fundraising. So that is what a VC does, and you've hit it right there, is growing a company. So what's super exciting about venture capital, I'll talk to you about it today, is that we take startups, companies that come out of Plug and Play, Y Combinator, Techstars, great accelerators, or just people with a computer and two programmers, and turn that into the next Dropbox, or into the next PayPal, into the next Google. And one thing that's interesting that all these companies that the folks prior have talked about, Cisco, Dropbox, PayPal, Intel, Evernote, they all had venture capital funding at some point along the way. So that is just something that it's a lot of folks in the room get because you are here at TeenTechSF. And today I want to spend a lot of time opening up for questions, but I'll show you a couple slides just to give you some idea of what we do at Fenox. So at a high level overview, what we invest in, right? It's disruptive markets, mobile tech, cloud, everything we've talked about earlier today, and everything that you've seen around the Bay Area. What stages, I won't go into it, but there's seed, there's Series A, and there's different financing stages. But really, we look for passionate people. So people like you in the audience, right? In a couple of years, when you learn how to code, or you find somebody that knows how to code, maybe you're a business executive, and you want to start a company, you're passionate about it. And we see that in somebody, and we finance that person, okay? And you'll ask a VC, what are the most important things of a startup? And they'll say 3 things, okay? The people, and the people, right? Everybody has a good idea. Everybody in this room probably has had an idea that they think is great. Maybe it came out a year or 2 after you thought it was great. Doesn't matter, everybody has an idea. It's who can execute that idea and who's passionate about it, okay? So just to give you an example of some companies we've invested in, Lark, which in 2011, a female CEO came and she said, hey, I want to make a wearable device. And we said, what the heck's a wearable device? It's 2011, if you can believe it's only 3 years ago. We said, okay, great. What is it? And it's a sleep monitoring device. You put it on your wrist, and it's going to be the next thing. Great. We saw the passion in this female CEO, young, early 20s, and we said, great, let's go with it. So we started investing. Now we're on the board. We've invested more and more, and we've helped her get into Japan. So the folks on the phone, possibly from Japan today, getting Lark on shelf space in the Best Buy type stores of Japan is what we do. So we help that company grow. We help it accelerate. We help it get into emerging markets is what we do. We also help them get into Apple stores. So now she's kind of pivoted, instead of selling hardware, because she was that catalyst, as Gaurav mentioned, is very important in that industry. She was one of the first to get into the Apple store, get on the shelf, very hard to do, and now she's pivoted to be more of a software platform. And now it's going to be on Samsung's devices moving forward as a software platform for wearables. Rap Genius, has anybody ever heard of Rap Genius or Genius.com? Okay, great. So they came out of Y Combinator in 2011, and it's a funny story. We, right after they pitched on a stage like this to a bunch of investors, a couple kids straight out of Princeton and worked at Google, and they said, hey, you know what we've noticed after working at a large company in a couple of years is that searching the web for lyrics is really popular. And we learned that, and we think we can make a company out of that. So we said, hey, this sounds like a great idea. Well, 50 people in the room thought it was a great idea too, and they swarmed these two CEOs, or the CEO and the founder, and said, hey, we want to give you our money. So we had to beg and plead for them to take our money,
right? I mean, it seems like a crazy thing, but in 2011, it was quite normal. So we called them, we emailed them, we showed up where they were about 17 times connecting with them before they allowed us to give them money, if you can believe that. So that is the opportunity that's in front of you guys here in the Bay Area, which is very unique. And I travel all around the world very frequently, from Korea to Japan to Southeast Asia to the United Arab Emirates. And what I see at places just like this is that they all want to live in the Bay Area and have that exposure. So take advantage of it, get involved. You guys are here. You have smart parents that brought you here. This is a great place to be. A couple other companies. So I mentioned we have Asian presence. We have folks in Jakarta and Singapore, and we invested in a company called Tech in Asia, which if you don't already know about it, it's like the tech crunch of Southeast Asia. All news about startups and everything Asian startups. We've had some IPOs, we've had some exits in venture capital. That's what we're about. So we find great pride in finding great startups, great entrepreneurs, great passion, and take them to an initial public offering or to an acquisition by a large corporate. We had an IPO on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, DLE, flash animation company in Japan, and we have a couple more coming up. Where do we find these companies? Places just like this. So Plug and Play, Y Combinator, as I mentioned, Techstars. What's really cool is that you guys live in this area where every night you can go to an event somewhere and pitch. A lot of them are free. A lot of them are two people with a laptop. And then you have an idea and you're just looking for some funding or you're looking for some partners to help you. That's really unique and very cool about where you guys live. So I encourage you to get out to these events, get involved, go your Saturday mornings, your Sundays, your Tuesday nights, and just be there. So follow Mark. He seems like he knows what he's doing here. And surround yourself by successful people like that. So we co-invest with a lot of other VCs. There's, I think, maybe around 65 plus right now that we've co-invested with. So all the famous VCs, we come in as a strategic investor and really help open up companies to global markets. A couple of our general partners, one from Eastern Europe, one with a history of Japan, myself, and then Kamal, who I believe knows the folks at Plug and Play as well. He's in our Dubai office, and then myself, who's here in San Francisco. There's our global presence, just so you guys know. And for the folks on the phone, we have people all around the world. We feel that's very important when we take a company and we bring it to a new area of the world. So for the folks in the room that have no idea how to get into Seoul, Korea, we make connections where you can get into the Amazon of Korea, which Amazon is not there yet. So now, why I'm here is really for you guys to ask me questions, okay? So please don't be shy. You guys have been very quiet, but go ahead. If you have a question, raise your hand. I'm happy to address it. If you want a story, let me know. Yes? Okay. Yeah, great question. So the question, what advice can you give to a startup when you're pitching to a venture capitalist? So no matter who you're pitching to, I would say you have to be passionate about it. So as George mentioned, find something you're passionate about. I, as a venture capitalist, study the person, study your body language, study what you're saying, and I look at you and I say, can you go fundraise past the round you're looking for right now? Because you, as a CEO or a founder, need to take this company to a Dropbox status, to a Google status. That's what we're looking for. So I look at the person and say, can you do that? And I know pretty quickly when I talk to an entrepreneur if that person is going to be able to go fundraise 100 million or 400 million or whatever it is. So, and I know the ones that, hey, maybe they've never done this before, they're uncomfortable, just have the passion. And some of us, we're going to have to act and do it, but some of us, it's inherent. So practice, number one, first and foremost. And as Saeed said, be prepared. So if you came here today and you looked up Fenox Venture Capital on the website, you saw our 40 portfolio companies, you found out where we are, and you could ask a very relevant question, it makes yourself very relevant, and it takes 10 minutes to do, but it shows your passion and your drive. So study, be prepared before you speak to a VC, and number one, do something you're excited about doing. Yeah.
One of our global partners.
Sure.
They wanted to know, relating to what was just asked, what are you looking for in the, not so much the pitch, but the company, the presentation that you see, especially knowing that here in the Silicon Valley, we are in an area where we have a lot of growth, innovation around us, but maybe a company from Morocco or Moldova, both of whom are global partners, would have a different outlook on technology. How do you factor that in? What do you look at when you have somebody present their new idea, their new company?
Yep, that's a great question. So every part of the world, I focus on many different areas of the world. And for instance, when you are in a place like Morocco or Moldova or wherever you are, most likely a lot of US companies are not there yet. And what I mean by that is there's no Amazon in Korea, if you can believe that. I mean, it's just not a big thing. There's 7 other companies like that in Korea. In Morocco, they might not have the global distribution network like FedEx and UPS. Really, they might not. In the United Arab Emirates, it's Aramex. Anybody ever use that? No. So what's important is that you find something that is not in that country and you really destroy that idea in that country. What I mean by that is take advantage of US corporates not being there. So if there is no PayPal in Bangladesh, which there is not, there is an opportunity. And there's 250 million people there, big market as the US in terms of population. So number one, if you're in an area like that, don't focus on the US economy to attack first, okay? You have to dominate your local market and then think about expansion into another place. So think about what isn't in that country today, and then think about how can I localize that idea that maybe has worked in China or the US or Japan, and taking that into my country and really developing it and making a great company. Yes. How many women-led startups have we in our portfolio? Is that right? So we have about 40 companies in our portfolio, and that's a great question. I'll tell you a funny story. So I was at the New York Venture Summit in Manhattan 2 months ago or 3 months ago, and I was speaking on a stage like this to a room like this, and I brought one of our CEO founders from Y Combinator to this event. She was the only woman there, really. I mean, it was a sea of men. So the investor industry is very male-dominated, and that will change. From our portfolio, I think 3 or 4 companies are female-led CEOs, and they're probably some of our strongest. So we just invested in a company called Women.com. Has anybody ever heard of that? Okay. I encourage you to get on there if you're a female. If you're a male, sorry, you're not allowed. But it's a really cool community to ask questions and talk. But some of our best companies are female CEOs. So we have a handful, but we're always looking for more. There's one I'm trying to get into, and she won't take my calls because she's already oversubscribed. So I think they're very, if you are female and you want to be a CEO and you're passionate about your idea, you go toe-to-toe with any male, if not a better looking investment. Yeah.
And sorry, just
last question. Yep, go ahead. Yep. So what I recommend, if you're a junior, senior in high school, you're looking at what college to go to, you can still go to events. And I think that's the most important thing because it's going to make you very relevant no matter who you talk to when you go for an internship on your sophomore year of college or junior year. Oh, in the Bay Area, I used to go to this tech event at Plug and Play every Thursday night, and I got to meet this guy. His name was Sergey, and all of a sudden he started Google 8 years later when I graduated college. Okay? So you know that person from years and years ago. Get connected, network with people. The easiest way is to not watch TV or go sit in front of your computer at night and talk to your friends about something that can wait. The best thing to do is go to an event, socialize, get good at walking up to people and introducing yourself, shaking your hand with them, and say, I'm really excited about what you're doing. Can you tell me more about your company? And just go to these events. Because right now, you guys may or may not know it, but like I said before, is that this area is just ripe with events. You can go and look online, and there's tons of events going on every night somewhere in the Bay Area that you can go to. But I would recommend doing that because it's a learning experience. They usually don't cost anything, and you get to network with people that are going to start the next Google. Okay. Thanks for having me. And Mark, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. And good luck to everybody. Thanks.
Next, we'll hear from Rouzati. Rouzati is the Director of Outreach for About.me, which provides a single platform for managing your digital identity. Let's welcome her to the stage. Yeah, those two, go for it.
All right, so before I begin, I'm going to ask, is anyone kind of tired? It's Saturday morning. I'm kind of tired. Cool. So if you can just like kind of get up and shake it off. And maybe you guys that are sitting over here, I'm kind of ADD, so it might be easier for me if you guys came and sat here and maybe introduced yourself to somebody along the way. It would really help me, because if I have to look over here, then I'll never look over here, and it'll just be kind of bad. Come on. No? Okay. So how are y'all today? Yes, you're answering my questions already. This is good. Okay. So as Mark mentioned, I am the Director of Outreach at About.me. And got it. Okay. I'm new to San Francisco. I just moved here about 2 months ago. I lived my whole life in Atlanta, Georgia, and I even went to college there, and I just decided, hey, it's, time to go after this opportunity that was presented to me and move across the country. And I just want to let you know that you are so lucky to be living in this area at such an amazing time. And for those of you that are kind of tuning in around the world, thank you for giving up your Saturday and doing something that can really help you follow your dreams. So that is so cool to me. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about something that you're exposed to on a daily basis, but you might not necessarily think about it when it comes to yourself. And this could be because, we're young. I'm not as young as you, but I still like to consider myself as young. And this is the idea of really owning your story and owning your personal brand. And you might be thinking, okay, I'm 15, 16 years old. What is she talking about? I don't have a personal brand. But you actually do. And this, we look at people all the time. We can look at them on our iPad and the paper and magazines, online, offline, and we're constantly exposed to people's stories on the web. And we never really take a step back and think, hey, what am I doing? So I'm going to show you some figures, and I want you to kind of shout out what comes to your mind when you first see these people. So this is obviously, okay, so just shout out some things that you think about when you see Beyonce. Yeah, irreplaceable. What else? Money, music. What else? Come on, y'all, you got to talk to me here. Confidence, awesome. Okay, next. Who's this? Okay, so what do you think when you hear of Steve Jobs? Apple, what else? Creativity, what else? Design, innovation, great. Who's this? Exactly. What else? Good. Leviosa. Okay. So I'm showing you these people because we're exposed to people like this. We're exposed to celebrities, musicians, people in tech, and they've branded themselves, or people have helped them brand themselves. And we all have this unique DNA that already makes us unique, but we also are constantly interacting with other people, and this kind of shapes who we are, and this shapes our decisions, shapes our interests. And combined, we have this creative story to tell. And you may not think that you have this creative story to tell, but you actually do. So let's take a step into my life. Like I said, grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. And this is where you would have found me at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18 in high school. I went directly to the library in the mornings. I had a laminated library pass for lunch. I would go and read The Economist or Vogue. I know it's kind of random, but I would read both. I probably, the reason I probably didn't have a prom date ever was because I was stuck here. I play the piano. I attempted to be in the drama club. I also was in the robotics club in high school, and something cool about this, I actually never built anything in robotics. I didn't even touch the robot. But I was the person who raised money for the team, and during the competitions, I would go and talk to the other teams and kind of trick them into giving me the parts that our team couldn't afford. Yeah. Huge bookworm, and I love Jane Austen novels. I really identified with the big female protagonist that she portrayed. Super into fashion. I loved tea. So when I was 15, I took a tea tasting class. I think everyone in the class was retired except for me. And I was sitting there tasting the tea leaves and learning all sorts of things from aged pu'er tea in China to oolong tea to green tea, white tea. I'm a huge sneakerhead. I think this is because I love health and I love brands like Nike and the marketing behind them, but I also love fashion, so I love how those two things combine and kind of make it cool to have some cool kicks on. I went to Georgia Tech. Anyone familiar with Georgia Tech in Atlanta? Cool. And I wasn't really a traditional student at Georgia Tech. I never had, that internship that the career professionals wanted me to have at Georgia Tech. I kind of just did my own thing. So a couple of things that I did. I started and sold an e-commerce business with my dad. I started this millennial magazine called Sweet Lemon. We had about 100 writers around the US. And the reason I did this is because I was reading all these magazines and saw, hey, I can't afford anything in this, or the financial advice doesn't really apply to me, being in college or just graduating from college. So I decided, hey, I'm just going to start it with some friends. And actually, Zoe in the audience here, when she was 18, she started writing for us, and now she works at About.me with me. So just to say, how important it is to network. And I actually never met her in real life, outside of Google Hangouts, until about 3 weeks ago during her interview. And she's 22 now, by the way. Oh. Okay. All right. And this is just to tell you that when I was in college, I really couldn't express myself properly on a resume. It just didn't really fit with me. It was just a piece of paper, and I couldn't really express what I did entrepreneurially. Didn't have an internship at Deloitte. But I had all these skills, right? I did all these things myself, and I learned so much, but I couldn't express it on a resume. And so I found myself making these portfolios and talking about how I thought and all these sorts of things. But there really wasn't a platform for me to share that with employers or people I wanted to network with. So I met this gentleman over here. His name is Tony Conrad. And he gave me this opportunity to move to San Francisco and work at About.me, and this is kind of one of the hangouts we have. That's one of my coworkers. She works in Lisbon. And About.me is this place where you can kind of own your story online. And this is really important because you shouldn't let Google define the person you are, or you shouldn't let someone who just goes on your LinkedIn page and reads all these things about you professionally think that you're just your job, because you're beyond your resume, you're beyond your job title, you're beyond that internship or club you're a part of at school. So here's my profile, and we call this the big picture of you. There's this notion that a picture is worth more than 1,000 words, right? So we give you this opportunity to put up a picture. And this is kind of where you can tell the personal part of your journey. So I would put things here if I were in high school like, hey, I was in the robotics team but never touched a robot. And these are just kind of cool things that when people land on this page and you direct them to this page, they'll probably ask you about later, and it sparks conversation, and you just tell your story. The next part about.me, we just launched this feature. It's called Backstory. So this is kind of a way for you to tell people about your professional experience. And it starts with this quote, so you can put a quote in here, or kind of your objective. I want to change the world. I want to learn how to code. I want to do X, Y, Z. put that up there. And here you kind of put your work experience. And if you're in high school, you can put, you know, I worked at an ice cream shop, or I was a part of the drama club, or I was a part of robotics like I was, or I played volleyball. That all goes here. And here we have an area for location. So if you are looking for an internship in high school, or you're looking to go to college in a certain place, you can put that right there. And towards the end, you can put all the links and kind of just have a hub for all your social media all in one place. And this is super important because you need to own your story. And it'll give other people a perspective about you. It'll foster conversations with those sorts of people. You'll be able to learn more about yourself through these conversations, more about other people, expand your network, and ultimately, you can change the world. I'm gonna end with a little Jay-Z quote. I'm from Atlanta, like I said, so he said, "Remind yourself, nobody is built like you. You design yourself." And this is so important because you're so young, you have so many opportunities to chase after your ideas, you have so many opportunities to fail. I think that every failure I had was actually a success story because of the way I interacted with it and the way I learned from it. So it's so important to just embrace the fact that you're young, embrace the fact that you're hungry, and get up in the morning and do things that you love and shape your story and really document your story along the way, because you can stand up here maybe one day and inspire someone your age and help them tell their story as well. So that's it, and you can connect with me on email if you have any questions, or on Twitter, or anything like that. Anyone have any questions? No? You have a question? Ish? No? Yes. On About.me, we've got, so we haven't checked in a while, but we've got millions and millions of users, and our growth numbers are crazy. So we're pretty excited. So you should totally get a page. Oh, and if anybody wants a page and needs help making a page, you can email me. And Zoe is taking pictures during the networking hour if you want a cool headshot. Any other questions? Cool. All right, thanks, guys.
Great. So the next part of our program is kind of our version of the elevator pitch. So we're adopting the Ignite format and slogan. And the next speakers only have 5 minutes to enlighten us, but to do it quickly. The first 4 speakers are going to be talking about how to unleash your potential. And the next 5 speakers will be talking about some amazing opportunities for teens who want to get involved with tech. So first up, we have Dan Zevin, who's from UC Berkeley Space Sciences. I met Dan as part of the NASA Novus program and also as the founder of Bay Area Teen Science.
Well, thank you for having me here. Thank you so much, Mark. Yeah, I'm supposed to be quick, so I'm going to be talking quick. I'm going to talk to you about getting ready for what you don't know. So I'm assuming everybody here is trying to prepare for their career and get the perfect career launched. And I'm going to tell you right now, no matter what you do, no matter how much you prepare, life is going to hit you over the head with something you just didn't expect. And the way I'm going to tell you this story is through my own personal experience. And really, you just got to let it happen, and you'll be fine. I'm going backwards. Okay. So I was born in Hollywood, California, Tinseltown. That's not important right now, but it'll come up in a little bit. Actually, when I was your age, my heroes were people like this. So this is Jacques Cousteau, a famous marine biologist, and then Jane Goodall, a famous primatologist, and Carl Sagan, a famous astronomer. You can ask your parents about these people. They'll know all about them. But they inspired me. They were my heroes. And so I envisioned my life, my career, literally being out in Africa, darting rhinos, doing all kinds of crazy stuff in the field with wildlife and conservation. That's where I thought I would end up. And actually, I did. My first job out of college was with the California Condor Recovery Program. So I was out helping to reestablish this species in California. Amazing, amazing creature. 9-foot wingspan. If it was up here, its wings would go across this entire stage. That was a bit of an internship, though, so I needed a real job, a job that actually paid pretty well. And lo and behold, I got a job in Hawaii with the Nature Conservancy. Hawaii, exotic, fantastic place. You got to go there if you haven't been there. And they have some pretty amazing creatures there, things that I got to work with, things I got to study. So that bird up there on the left is the Eevee. Then there's sea turtles, and then a very rare seal called the Hawaiian monk seal. All very interesting creatures, also all very cute. Hawaii, wonderful place, great place to relax, great place to just kind of let things go and take it easy. Great place to get old. Well, I was in my early 20s, and remember, I was from Hollywood. I spent all of my early teen years when I was your age on the Sunset Strip, going to all these different clubs, seeing amazing rock stars. I was living life in the fast lane, and Hawaii was not that. So, what do? Well, you try to explore, you try to go around. This is the big island of Hawaii. They call it the Big Island, also known as Hawaii. But it's not that big, and you can only go around that island so many times. I was going stir crazy. So I did something that many people thought was absolutely insane. I quit my job. I just quit my job, and I got everything I own down to 4 suitcases. I came to San Francisco thinking San Francisco is really more like me. Now, when I got to San Francisco, I loved it. I exploded. I thought it was the perfect place for me. All I had to do now was find the right job. Going now to my LinkedIn page, although I love About Me, I think I'm going to start posting everything up there on About Me. As you can see, so down on the bottom there on the lower right, that's where I got that first job with the Condor program. That was actually part of the LA Zoo's captive breeding program. Then the job with the Nature Conservancy. Well, coming here, I had what I thought was the perfect place to live, but maybe the job wasn't going to work out. I tried working in the for-profit biological consulting firm. That didn't work out too well. I was very unhappy there. I did get a job in environmental education at a place called Nature Bridge. That was great, except after 3 years, I realized that year 3 was starting to turn out just like year 2. Year 2 was definitely exactly like year 1. It was getting very cyclic, and I felt like I was in a rut, so that wasn't it. I took a job with the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. I really thought I had landed there. That was an exciting job working with some famous astronomers. And lo and behold, 5 years later, the executive director retired. A new executive director came on, and he and I clashed like you wouldn't believe. But again, something you don't know, something you can't prepare for. It just happens. So I left there. I went to the Exploratorium. You may have heard of it. Exploratorium, a fun place, but a crazy place, and we can talk more about this later if you want, but I couldn't take it there. So luckily, I landed at UC Berkeley, and now I think I've found it. UC Berkeley, an amazing place. I am working side by side with zoologists, astronomers, paleontologists, people even looking for extraterrestrials in space. It's a really exciting place. I also can do what I want to do. So like Mark said, I founded my own program called Bay Area Teen Science, and up there I am trying to help people just like you find exciting STEM opportunities and creating STEM opportunities for you. So if you go to the Facebook page, you'll see I'm listing constantly opportunities that you might want to check out, internships and such. And then we're going to be putting on career fairs and teen science nights. And, whoop, backwards again. What it's all about, my final message to you, is finding the right balance. I got to tell you, you're never really going to find the perfect job. You're never going to really find the perfect place to live, but you can try to balance it all and find what is best for you. And above all, going back to the original question, are you ready for what you don't know? Know yourself, know who you are, and you'll be just fine. Thank you very much.
Next, we're lucky to have two Stanford students speaking. Nick Troccoli is a longtime TeenTechSF mentor and leads one of our most popular breakout sessions on how to create an iPhone app. He recently won a scholarship from Apple to attend the WWDC and is a frequent Stanford Splash instructor. Please welcome Nick Troccoli.
How does this thing work? Oh, okay, that's forwards. That's backwards. Okay, it's yellow mixed. All right, awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Troccoli. As he said, I am a junior at Stanford studying computer science. And it wasn't too long ago that I was much behind where you guys are now in terms of tech. Obviously, you know, I have a big interest in tech like you guys. But, you know, back in high school, I had, you know, no idea what I was doing, you know, and I was much behind where you guys were. And so what I wanted to do was just sort of talk a little bit about my experience, what some, I guess, to go off of the previous lightning round, what things have sort of hit me over the head over the years, literally and figuratively, and talk about how I got started and sort of the things that I've learned along the way. And I sort of pulled away 4 key things that I've sort of learned. So jumping right into it here. The first thing that I've learned over the years is solve your own problems. So I sort of jumped into programming and tech and everything like that, making apps. I always wanted to make iPhone apps, and I was like, hey, this is really cool, you know, seeing all these people walk around with phones, and I wanted to make stuff that I could use. But you know, sort of the main problem that you run into is like, okay, well, what do you do? Like, you know, everyone's trying to come up with ideas, and you don't really know where to start. And what I realized is you can start by solving your own problems. You are the one that knows what you want the most. You can't go off and really solve other people's problems as well as you can your own. And so one example is, for me at least, waking up in the morning. How many people have trouble waking up in the morning? Yeah. So if you have parents around, like your parents are pretty much like in my case, they were like the only thing that could get me out of bed. Unfortunately, in college, you don't really have your parents around anymore, so nothing can get me out of bed, period. So does anyone know what this is? Anyone seen this? It's a watch, yeah, but does anyone know what a Pebble is? Anyone heard of a Pebble? Yeah, so Pebble's like a smartwatch, right? It plugs into your phone, it hooks up to your phone, and you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. One of the things it can do is vibrate on your wrist in the morning to wake you up, right? So it worked for like a week for me, maybe, and then, you know, I got used to it and I just sort of slept right through it. So one of the things that I've always wished I could do was have my Pebble just constantly vibrate until it knows that I'm out of my room on the way down the hall to the bathroom, right? So it doesn't like let me off the hook until it knows that I'm physically out of bed, because I'll just sort of jump out of bed, turn it off, and jump back in bed, right? So, you know, that's one of the things that like the sort of the I wish that I had this, right? I wish that I could actually get out of bed in the morning, you know, because it doesn't happen. So solve your own problems. You know what you want first and foremost. You don't really know what other people want as much as you know what you want. So the second thing is it's about what you do, not what works. So very, very few times have I ever made something that actually works the way that I intended it to. But that's not the point, because, you know, a lot of people are like, hey, you know, I made this. It didn't really work, but it was a really, really cool experience. And so as sort of an example, one of the first apps that I ever made was an app that sort of kept track of my class schedule and homework assignments and sort of like an assignment book type thing. And I let a bunch of students use it, and the first year was like a mess. Like, it didn't work, you know, it was, I mean, you know, it was like any version 1 thing, you know, works. It didn't work, and it was like really, really buggy, and I had all sorts of problems with it. But it's not about the fact that it worked, it was about the fact that I made it in the first place. And so a lot of your ideas and a lot of my ideas have never really worked because just something happens that prevents it from panning out. But you just you keep trying to work at it, and so I improved it over the next couple summers. And, you know, overall, I got way more out of it from the fact that it didn't work than from the fact that it did work. So it's not about what works, but it's about what you try to achieve in the first place. Next, this is one of my favorites. Cool things come in small packages. So sometimes the funniest ideas and the coolest things that you make are some of the stupidest ideas you could ever come up with. And what I mean by that is it's not about making something huge that everyone's going to use and it's going to make you really, really famous. It's about just like sort of on a whim saying, hey, you know, it would be funny if I had that. And as an example, April Fool's Day, this is a great example. April Fool's Day, right? You have, you know, if you sort of know how to program, you're like, man, I wish I could do something funny for April Fool's Day that like really mess with people. So a couple of my friends and I decided to make an app that would let you remote control someone else's Siri on their iPhone. right? So basically the way it worked is I would be like in a room somewhere listening, and my other friend would be walking around and listening to what people say to him. So he would walk up and say, hey, look, I can do Siri on my phone. And he would, press the button and say something. I would hear what he says, and I could type in a reply, and it would send it to his phone, and his phone would speak it with the Siri voice. And obviously this messed with a lot of people. Because having Siri say whatever, like literally whatever you want is a lot of fun. But obviously like that doesn't really have much use outside of April Fool's Day. But it was a really, really funny idea, and people really, really liked it. Or even if you have a Halloween costume, like I was Mario last year for Halloween and made an app that I could put my phone in my back pocket, and when I jumped, it made the Mario jumping sound. So like I could walk around and jump, and every time I jumped, it would annoy the heck out of people. But it was funny. It's sort of useless, but on a whim, I was just like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if I made this? So the coolest things that you can make sometimes are the ones that you make on a whim that are really, really small and just sort of off the bat, really, really funny ideas. And last but not least, it's all about the people. So sometimes a lot of people in tech forget that it's the people in the first place that make everything work. And the people that you meet, it's not about only what you make, but the people that you meet. And, college is a great place to do it, but events like this are even better because you're surrounded by people that share the same interests that you have. And nothing really gets you revved up, as you guys probably know, nothing gets you revved up like being surrounded by a bunch of people that share the same interests as you, that are working on stuff that's like really, really cool. And I had, like Mark mentioned, I had the awesome opportunity of attending Apple's developer conference in June, and you don't really get to know people quite as well as when you're standing online with them at 3 a.m. waiting for an Apple keynote. You're also pretty sleep deprived too. But it's about the people that you meet and being surrounded by people that are doing the same stuff as you, that are just as excited about what you're doing and all the sort of the area that you're in as you are. So overall, those are the sort of the 4 big things that have hit me over the head over the years. Obviously, there's still a lot more out there, still a lot more for me to learn, but I thought I'd share what I've learned along the way. So thank you, guys.
Next, we have Paul Warren, who's also from Stanford. He works with the Stanford Student Space Initiative, and he's going to speak about some truly cosmic opportunities. Paul was one of the student panelists and breakout leaders at the TeenTechSF at Stanford event last May.
Hey everyone, like most or many of you in this room, I am lucky enough to have the best job title in the world, student. If you think about it, it's really a golden ticket. It's the license to ask stupid questions. It's the freedom to go up to the random mentor, the random teacher, to email the C-level executive, the CEO of the guy down the street, and say, hey, I'm a student, I don't know much, but I'd really, really love to learn. Do you think I could get the chance to come in and learn about what you're doing? And it's the beautiful golden ticket because everyone loves talking about themselves, and everyone loves trying to help other people. So if you are able to flash the student card as often as you can, you will find opportunities galore. But there's something important here. This is going to be a little bit different than something that I did a lot in high school. In high school, played the numbers game a lot. Cal Newport, How to Be a Straight A Student. I read all those books, tried to play the numbers game as often as I could. And it really was not fun. I did not enjoy that, and it really didn't get me much or anywhere or anything. And the really, really important thing that I found after 2 or 3 or 4 years of experimenting in terms of how to figure out what I want to do and how to accomplish the most that I can and be the most interesting person that I can and do the most interesting things I can is something I call the shotgun approach, which is just try everything and see what sticks. You can go ahead and study for the test, or you could apply for a really random opportunity. You can, make your about.me page. You can email use your student card and email the professor and say, hey, I really want to get involved in your lab. Can I come in and think about working here for the summer? And if you do enough of that, eventually something sticks. For me, one of the things that stuck was in 11th grade. My science teacher pulled me aside out of class one day and said, hey, Paul, there's a national organization that's trying to give students opportunities to send experiments into space. And if you write a proposal, you know, everyone in the county's doing it, but you know, we'll help you if you want to write a proposal. And you know, if it gets in, you can go up on SpaceX Dragon. I said, okay, yeah, that sounds awesome. Wait. You're saying I can send something on this. I can send something on that if this works out. And they said, yeah. And I said, okay. I had no idea what idea I was going to do. I did not really, I used the student card. I emailed people and said, hey, I'm thinking about space experiments. Can we meet to chat about space? Can I, you know, let's read all the science fiction I can. Let's learn as much as I can through TED Talks. And eventually I found something by Cynthia Kenyon about how when you modify a gene in a specific type of worm called C. elegans, you can make them live for up to twice as long. And I talked to a couple folks and I said, oh, hey, you know, it'd be really cool if I could, you know, if we could send that to space and see if that happened in space too. And they said, sure. And I said, okay, so I wrote the proposal. And it would be a very boring story here if that did not work out. That's why I'm here telling you about it. So a couple months later, I got called down to the principal's office for the good news, the acceptance, the congratulations. And I said, wow, this is awesome. You know, I have the chance to send something, you know, a biology experiment to the International Space Station. I should have taken AP Bio. And tried to figure out how to actually go about making something like this happen. The feedback I got on the proposal was, you know, this would be a really cool idea if you could get it to work. You know, it might be a little tough to do this by yourself. So I used my student card and I emailed all the professors I could find. I Googled C. elegans. I emailed Cynthia Kenyon. I just said, hey, I'm doing this experiment. Can you send some resources my way? Can we have a phone call? Can I chat? You know, really, can you help me with this? And the general thought here was just once you have the opportunity, once you find something that sticks, you go all in. You really, really, really do not have a reason to hold back. Once you have something that you think is cool, there's always something that you can do to make it cooler. And in my case, I ended up finding a mentor at the University of Nottingham in the United Kingdom. And after a month or so of emailing him back and forth, of him sending me some papers and me trying to convince him that I was actually serious about this and that it was actually going to happen, I was lucky enough to convince him to fly from the United Kingdom to my high school to give a talk at my high school and chat with me about the experiment. Finally, at the end of that, he said, okay, you're serious, you know, I'll help you out. And he introduced me to some folks at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, which is where I found the mentors that I needed and used my student card to its full advantage. That only happened because I was able to use the student card to go for everything that possibly, that was available for me. And at the end of the day, it did fly, and it was the best thing that possibly could have happened. In high school. And that was what convinced me to throw away my Cal Newport book. That was what convinced me to go for all of the projects and to really, really subscribe to the shotgun approach. The idea here, though, is that I'm standing up here telling you about one of my successes. The downside to the shotgun approach is that a lot of those things are misses. A lot of the things are failures. For every 10, 100, 50 things you try, one of them sticks, 20, 30, 40 of them, they don't. But it's really, really important to remember that at the end of the day, you're not going to remember the ones that fail. You're not going to stand up on a stage and tell people about the opportunities that did not work out. You're going to talk about the things that shaped you, and the failures and the successes, and you're going to remember and be shaped by the things that you were able to take as far as you could. My roommate and I have something we like to constantly remind each other of. It's the 95% rule. 95% of the time you don't get something, but nobody remembers that. We don't remember the 95%. We remember the 5% of the times we do. So it's important to do the shotgun approach, to learn as much as you can, to try with as much as you can, and it's important to realize that it's okay to fail, and it's actually important to embrace failure, because I'd honestly say if you're not failing every week, not every day is a little much, but if you're not failing every week or every month, if you cannot remember the last time you failed, then that means you're not thinking big enough. The other important question that you have to ask yourself, if you're doing the shotgun approach, if you're trying to go for anything, for everything and everything that looks interesting, and you, like a lot of other people in this room, are interested in everything, you don't know where to start. You don't know which opportunities to pursue. You don't know which ones you want to go big in. And the important question here is to figure out why you're doing the things you're doing. Before you do any activity, before you apply for any job, before you go to any conference like this, you want to ask yourself, what am I hoping to get out of this? Why am I doing this? And at the end of the event, you want to be able to think about what you learned and what you did, and you say, I came to this event to do X. Did that happen? And if you are able to ask yourself this question, this why, you will be able to learn more than you ever will if you just constantly go along and just accept what other people tell you. So, shotgun approach. It's okay to fail. Ask yourself why. Go big or go home. Thank you.
So now we have the last speaker in the theme of kind of unleashing your potential, and his name is Sam Parr. I met him at his annual conference, HustleCon, and I was really impressed by his practical approach to getting things done.
Sweet. How do I use this thing? What's up? How's everyone doing? I kind of have to look at these to see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to be peeking over a little bit. But I've got some bad news. Nobody cares about you. I know it's kind of hard to hear, but as I get going with this presentation, it'll make a little bit more sense. But so the reason this presentation came to be was when I was a little bit younger, when I first moved to San Francisco, I would send lots of emails because I didn't know anyone here. I had started a company, and I needed to get in touch with people. Also, when I was in high school, I had okay grades, but I was trying to work my way around the system by emailing directly to the decision makers at universities, or same thing with hiring managers. So I ended up sending a lot of emails at a young age, and well, not a lot of them got answered. And so I kept wondering, I'm not sure if it's going through, if I got the right email address, or if they're just ignoring it. So that's why this presentation and the skill set that I've learned doing this has came to be. So I'm not going to talk too much about myself, except for right here. I've founded 2 companies. One was acquired. Right now I run something called HustleCon Media. I also get paid to write emails for people, write the copy on websites. And when we had Bunk, my roommate matching company, we sent literally millions of emails a week, like to huge campaigns. So I've messed up literally millions of times before I actually found out how to do all this right. So I've failed a ton of times, which is why I've kind of learned how this stuff works. Okay, so one thing I'm going to talk about, and I know, or who has sent an email in the last week? Okay, so nearly everyone. Then I'm going to guess that you've made this mistake, and I cannot stand it. One, because I've done it all the time. I still do it every once in a while. I know y'all do this because I see it every single day when I get asked to do things, or if someone's just cold emailing me trying to sell something. And I see it all the time, and it makes me cringe, and that is boring and stale emails. They are the worst. And this doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're emailing, like the previous speaker was saying, the shotgun approach, trying to get internships and things like that, it's going to hurt you big time. Here's an example that I got 2 nights ago, actually. You could read it there, but it was clearly someone from India because they said it was India. They're Indian, but I could read the language there. We are mobile iPhone apps web design development firm with 155 professionals based out of National Capital Region, India. Okay, first of all, that first sentence, whenever you read that, you're just going to want to send that straight to junk. So we're going to teach you how to write a better email so you're going to get noticed. Okay, and the way I'm going to teach you is what I think is the most powerful formula that I've ever read. To this day, I still use it. I use it for every time I write email, every time I write a blog post, or every time I write even a Facebook status. I use this formula. It goes back for years and years and years. And it actually originated with direct marketing. So direct marketing is still around today, but before the internet, if you wanted to sell like sunglasses or a book or even real estate, you would find a list of tens of thousands of people based off of, you could research them and you could buy lists of their address, and then you would use just one single piece of paper. You would have 1 or 2 photos, and you would just write a whole page trying to convince someone who you've never met and they've never seen your product to buy something. And so when you had to do that, you had to learn how to use words effectively and efficiently. And that's how this formula came about. And that formula is called AIDA. It's pretty popular. Has anyone heard of this? You have? So we got like 2 or 3. So then you guys are in for a treat because this is an awesome, awesome, awesome formula. So every time you write, keep this in mind. AIDA stands for attention, interest, desire, and action. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a normal email that I receive all the time, and I'm going to break it down with you guys, so we're going to see exactly how we can turn a crappy email into an awesome email. This is more for sales, but if you're trying to get into a college, if you want to like get in touch with to have someone for a like a meeting about a university you want to attend, or if you want to get an internship or something, we'll change the example as we go just to apply it to that a little bit more. But so this starts off with subject is hello from helicopters.com. So let's assume that somebody is trying to sell me a helicopter. I guess someone found out that I like to buy helicopters, and so they're trying to sell me one. So it says, Dear Sam, helicopters.com has been around, or has been in business since 1996. We've served thousands of customers across the globe, and we deeply care about our customers. Our business started because we are passionate about helicopters, and you can clearly see that in the quality of helicopters that we produce. I'd love to sit down for coffee and pick your brain. That's how it's going to end. Has anyone ever used that phrase, pick your brain? I recommend you don't do that ever again, because everyone uses it. And if you want to stand out, don't use that. Okay, so let's start with the A. We're going to get someone's attention. Now, 90% of people, when they write emails, the first sentence is, hi, my name is this or that, and I do this or that at this company. And so we're going to try and just cut that out right at the bat and realize that big shots receive requests and emails, like hundreds of requests and emails a day. Sometimes, for someone really popular, they'll get thousands per week. So the first sentence needs to grab their attention. So if I'm going to do that in this case, I'm going to say, subject's going to be high traffic, drive over it. So instead of saying, Dear Sam, what's happening, Sam? I mean, that's not completely outlandish, but it's kind of out there enough that you don't see it every day. You know how that morning commute of yours is painful, so painful that you end up cursing at everyone in front of you? Well, that wouldn't be the case if you had a helicopter. That's an all right first line. That you're going to grab someone's attention with that. So at least they're going to read your first sentence. So the next part of the formula is interest. So we got to get them interested. And this is really hard, but once someone has read your first line, the goal to this next sentence is to create a slippery slope, meaning they've read one sentence, now we want to get them to read the second and third sentence by creating something that's really easy to read and makes them want to go down like a water slide. So the best ways to do this is to say really intriguing facts, to tell a really brief 1, 2, 3, or 4 sentence story. Or you can make something, you can even ask questions, but whatever it does, it has to be interesting or it has to appeal directly to what they want, not who you are. So if we're going to create that slippery slope for this email, it's with a helicopter, you would get to work 20% of the time, you're going to save money on gas, and you will be able to fly over 200 miles an hour. If this guy has heard about me and how I hate traffic, this really appeals to me. I'm extremely interested in this, and I'm going to keep reading. The third section is desire. So this is when we're going to flip a switch from, in this section of anytime you write an email, you're going to be interested in it. Now this is the point where you say to yourself, holy hell, I really need this. I want this product. I want whatever this guy's offering. I love this. This is when that flip switches from like when you go and research different books you want to buy versus reading the product of a book or reading the product description of some book, and you read the description and you go, oh, this is it. I got to have it. So this is where we make that switch. And so the best way to do this is to do testimonial, social proof, or get your foot in the door, or ease of use. So what that means is you say to them, if ease of use would be like, I will come to you, I will bring this to you, all you have to do is say yes. It just, you make them desire by saying, this is so simple, I would be dumb not to say yes. And you could also do it by answering all the questions and answering all the objections that they would ever have, just saying yes to your request. So you go ahead and in your mind you say, why wouldn't this person say yes to what I'm asking them? And then you just go and address all of those in this section. So for our email that we're using, I would say something like, your time is worth $200 per hour. You're spending 300 hours a week in traffic, which means you're wasting 60 grand a year. That's extremely interesting. You see that number? If it's a guy who can afford a helicopter, I mean, he's probably making $200 an hour, and now he's wasting 60 G's. I mean, that's real. That makes you want to buy it. Plus, the helicopter is only $120,000, so only after a few years you're going to be profitable. That makes me want to buy a helicopter if I'm making $200 an hour and I'm spending all this time in traffic. And did I mention that helicopters last for 10 years? It's like, you'd be crazy not to want this. So the final part is action. So we got to explain how they act. This sounds very obvious, but what you need to know is that you need to walk this person through the action process as if you're holding their hand. So, for example, if you want an internship, you say, you describe yourself by going through the action, interest, and desire, and then you would say, if you're interested in having me on your team as an intern, call me back right now, or call me back today, here's my phone number, I'll be able to answer, and then we'll be able to move forward the next steps, which hopefully would mean a meeting next Saturday, or something like that. Be extremely, extremely, extremely specific, more specific than you think needs to happen. So for this, it says, for our example, it's, look, I know a helicopter isn't something that you buy online without trying out first, so how about we meet Saturday at 1 p.m. in Mountain View so you can check one out. If you're interested in this, just all you have to do is reply to this email, and I'll call you back right away with more details. So this is the email that we started with. You could read, we read it earlier, but you could read it now. Pretty boring. And it goes to we changed it to this using AIDA formula. This is the most basic form, this is the most basic application of this process, but I promise you, if you use this from every email that you write from now on, you're gonna have significantly more results. And just remember that the reason this works is no one cares about you, they only care about what they want. And so this formula just helps you appeal to their needs, and you will thus get what you want more often. So if you need to contact me, and if you want to send me some funny emails or something that you want me to review or something, I'm sam@samparr.com. I also have my company is HustleCon.com, and if you go there, you can see how we use all types of wacky copy and wacky words on our webpage. And we do this because we've proven that we make way more money and have way more sales when we write with the AIDA formula than when we don't. So that's all, and thank you.
We have 5 more lightning round speakers who are going to talk about some amazing opportunities for teens in tech. First, we have Andy and Ashley from the Terra Robotics team. They compete in a special category of FIRST robotics called the FIRST Tech Challenge. Robots in this category must fit inside an 18-inch square box and accomplish some pretty crazy tasks. So I just want to thank them for taking the time out of preparing for this year's robotics season to come talk with us.
Hi, my name is Andy.
I'm Cho. And I'm Ashley, and as was said before, we're from Terra Robotics in Pacifica, California, and we're kind of still, oh no, we are okay. So we'd like to tell you about our robot and team.
We compete in an organization called FIRST, which stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. This was founded by Dean Kamen, who also invented the Segway. Within FIRST, there's 4 different levels. There's Junior FIRST LEGO League and FIRST LEGO League for K-8 schools, and there's FIRST Tech Challenge and FIRST Robotics Competition for high schools.
As Andy said, FIRST Tech Challenge, or FTC, is the league we compete in with our robots. And in FTC, 4 teams compete on a 12 by 12 foot field. This is a picture from a few years ago where robots had to pick up rings from the side of the goal, from the side of the field, and score them on a 3 by 3 pegboard in the middle. It's kind of like robotics tic-tac-toe. And at the beginning of every match, there's 30 seconds of autonomous where a robot has to find an infrared beacon using an infrared sensor and score, and it's all pre-programmed. We're not controlling the robot at all. And normally, all 4 robots will be moving at once instead of just the one, but this shows you fairly well what they can do.
After the autonomous period, there's 2 minutes of a tally-up period or driver-controlled period. In this period, drivers drive the robots in order to pick up scoring elements, and they can either score the elements or block other robots from scoring. In our league, there's restrictions to what you can build out of. There's restrictions to the type and number of motors you can use, but we can use any raw materials and we can machine them to anything we want.
The programming language we use is called Robot C. It's a variant of the C language with functions for robots.
We also use CAD or computer-aided design to help us design our robot within the computer before physically building it up, and that saves us both time and money. And we can also use it to show specific mechanisms of the robot that would otherwise be hidden.
So this is a CAD buildup of this robot right here. This robot has 3 main ideas. There's a throw drive for mobility, a block conveyor to pick up scoring elements, and a lift to hang the robot at the end of a match. And as Mark says, our league has an 18-inch size restriction, so our lift and block conveyor fold into itself.
And now we're going to transition into our Prezi portion of our presentation.
So before we start the design process, we do a prep step. So first we build the field, then we understand the game rules, because if we misunderstand it, then we can build the wrong robot. Next we understand the allowed materials. Then we drive last year's robots on this year's field just to get a sense of all the obstacles on the new field.
So after all of our prep work, we actually start designing our robot. And the first thing we always do is strategize, because we have to strategize what we want our robot to do. And we always strategize and brainstorm using a whiteboard because it helps share our ideas with our team members so much easier than trying to explain it. After that, we research. So we research past year game challenges that have similarities to this year's. And we also research real-world mechanisms that have applications towards our robot. Then we have to identify our subassemblies, and a subassembly is just a bunch of parts thrown together to accomplish a goal, so like an arm or a lift. Then we have our space assignments, because if you stack subassemblies one on top of another, you'll have something like this where you can't access the things in the middle. But if you plan it out beforehand, you'll have something like this where you can access it from the exterior and interior. And this is one of our space assignments from a few years ago. After our space assignments, we have an order of integration, which is pretty much just what order the subassemblies are that we're going to build. And that's when we start developing the subassemblies themselves. And our development of subassemblies is a looped process where we only start on a new subassembly after we completely finish the last one. And the first step is always listing the requirements and constraints. Then we always brainstorm our ideas on a whiteboard, like I said before. Then we have to prove the concept that we brainstormed before, like in here. We needed to know if two chains could bring a ball up, like that. After we're done with our proof of concept, we have to identify the subassembly interactions, because the 2 gears shown were almost in conflict with the sprocket, so we have to make sure nothing's ever in conflict with each other. Then we have to mock up our thing to make sure it's working, which we then test, and then we optimize it, which means we make it smaller, faster, stronger. And one thing our team always does is make an FEA, or a finite element analysis, which shows the forces put on a piece, and we can take out weight that we wouldn't otherwise know about. Then we plan out and mark our pieces, which leads us to cutting and machining them, which we then assemble and test if applicable. And if everything worked out right, we move on to our next subassembly.
And along with using CAD in our design process, we also use CAD for manufacturing our pieces. So we 3D printed the pieces shown here. And 3D printing is an additive process, whereas CNC milling is a subtractive process. And this is a bit of a sped up version of us milling some hubs. And these are the final hubs. And if your team works really hard and you have a lot of luck on your side, you might be able to advance to the World Championships. And the World Championships is really fun, and you can compete with teams from all around the world.
So we're Terra Robotics once again. I don't know if we have time for questions right now, but in 10-20 minutes during the networking break, we'll be outside on the patio letting you guys drive our robots. So if you have any questions then, please come up and ask. And thank you for listening to our presentation.
Great. Next, we have Judy Ho. Judy is the Bay Area Director of Technovation, and the Technovation Challenge is the largest and longest-running global technology competition exclusively for young women in STEM. Their intensive program covers the basics of coding, user interface design, market research, business plan development, and crafting a startup pitch. Please welcome Judy Ho.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. So as Mark said, I'm the Bay Area Director of Technovation out here, and that role's kind of been changing as time goes on and the program continues to grow. So I'm focusing more on curriculum and our website development going forward. So before I found Technovation, I've been at Technovation for about a year now. I used to work at Intel, and I worked at Intel for about 4 years doing CPU validation, specifically the server CPU line. And most of the time when I tell people that, their eyes kind of glaze over and they're like, I have no idea what that means. And what that means in a nutshell is that I make sure the things that you save to the cloud get saved the way that you want to save them, and that when you try to retrieve it, it comes back to you the way that you want it. And I try to make it go fast. So before I worked at Intel, I did my undergrad at MIT and I got my degree in electrical engineering. That's also where I took my very first programming class. It's a very exciting time, a lot of late nights. And before that, I grew up in Chicago, and it's where I spent my entire life before I left for college. And during my time at MIT and in my time at Intel, I noticed a lot of really strange things about the gender ratio. So even though about 57% of all college undergrads are women, and 52% of math and science majors are women, for some reason, only 18% of computer science majors are women. So we have a majority of women in college, yet only 18% are computer science majors. And I can tell you, working in the tech industry at Intel, this is a very true statistic. I've lived this statistic. You know, there were many, many times where I'd be sitting in meetings and I'd be one woman out of 5 to 10 guys, you know, and that's a tough ratio to live with. And there are a lot of reasons for why that ratio exists. And a lot of people think that stereotypes are a part of it. So how many people, when you think of a computer scientist, you think of something like this? You know, someone who sits, you know, with computers all day by himself, doesn't really do a whole lot. And yeah, a lot of people think this. I've thought this, and there are a lot of times when people ask me where I went to school and what I studied, I say MIT and electrical engineering, and they look at me and say, what? Really? And I'm like, why is that so unbelievable? Because in their minds, they see this. They see some guy sitting all by himself, you know, never talking to anybody. You know, and on top of that, a lot of girls like to have impact. And they think that, you know, if you're a computer scientist, you're not ever going to talk to people and you're never going to help anybody. And I've been there as well. And let me just say that you can have impact, even as a computer scientist, because it's totally up to you what you create. And that's where Technovation comes in. Technovation is a global technology entrepreneurship competition for young women. So sorry guys, you can't submit for us, but you can still use our curriculum and our stuff online, and you can still use it to create. And what we challenge all the young women who enter in our competition is to create an app to address a problem in your community, right? Apps are everywhere now. Pretty much everybody has a smartphone. It's a huge market. And how else can you reach a broader community than through the smartphone? And Technovation has really grown over the years. Since 2010, when we started with 45 girls with an in-person program, we've received submissions ranging from games at the very beginning to apps like this now, where we had a submission from Korea to address the problem of a lot of paper receipts. That's a lot of waste. And so they use NFC for mobile payments in Korea, and they have something to track receipts. They created an app to do that and to track your expenses and your budgeting. And then there are also issues like local produce. How do you get local produce, especially in urban areas? A lot of people don't have access to that. We're fortunate enough to live in California where that, it's abundantly available here, but not everybody has that. The drought is an issue here. Some students created an app to help with water conservation. Some tips for how you can be a part of the solution. Cycling is also a big thing. Here in San Francisco, a group up in Portland is also a big thing in Portland. They created an app to help cyclists track routes and hazards to minimize accidents, because there are a lot of cycling accidents out there. And like I said, in 2010, we started with 45 girls and an in-person program, but since then, we've moved away to an online submission platform, and we receive submissions from all around the world. And just this last year, we received submissions from over 1,500 girls in 26 countries. And that only adds to the diversity of the problems that we see and the types of apps that the students create. We have students from India who are trying to tackle the problem of female safety by tracking the all-female buses out there, right? And that's a solution, a problem that's very unique to their community. So how does Technovation work? In a nutshell, Technovation, the students work with, in a team of 3 to 5 students, with a coach who is usually a teacher and with a mentor who is a female professional, usually from the tech industry. And so the female mentor, if you have issues trying to find one, we try to help you with that, and we match you up. And there are mentors who meet with their teams virtually via Skype or Google Hangout, or in person. Our curriculum supports App Inventor. How many people have heard of App Inventor? So it's a blocks-based visual programming language where you can quickly prototype Android apps. Also, some mentors take their girls on field trips to show them what the workplace is like. I had the opportunity to take my girls to Facebook, called in a favor from a friend. They were really excited, but who wouldn't be with free ice cream? And then at the end of the competition, after all the submissions have been reviewed, the top 10 finalists come to the Bay Area here for a World Pitch Finals, where they get to get on stage and pitch to tech professionals from the industry here. So this year we had judges from Dropbox, from LinkedIn, from Intel. And a lot of girls say, or a lot of students really in high school say, I've never programmed before, how can I do this? How can I possibly do that? Well, 65% of our girls have never programmed before. They've never taken development class, and that's okay. When I was in high school, I would have been a part of the 65% statistic. And that's why we use App Inventor, because App Inventor is easy and it takes a lot of the syntax out of the way, so you can really prototype rapidly. I really wish that I had had Technovation when I was in high school, because Technovation not only teaches you how to program an app, not that I had apps when I was in high school, there were no smartphones yet, but it teaches you how to sell yourself and your product, how to differentiate yourself. Because it's great, you can build a great product, but if you can't explain to someone what it does, why it's great, no one's gonna use it, right? So that's a really, really important skill. And presenting well. When I was in high school, I was consumed with APs and what APs here and there and all of that stuff, and I'm sure everybody still is, and these are important, right? They're important, but what's more important is that you really take the opportunities to go out there and create and to present your work and to showcase yourselves. I had a mentor from Intel tell me when I was during an internship that if you're ever given the opportunity to present, take it. Just please, please do it well. And I didn't believe him then, but I totally buy into it now, because that is your opportunity to stand out and really make a mark and sell yourself. So that's my advice, is to always remember to create and always remember to present and sell yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Next, we have Ashu Desai, who's the founder of MakeSchool and the creator of Helicopter, and he's going to talk to us about his latest venture.
Hey everyone, I'm Ashu. We're building a replacement, or I'm the founder of a company called MakeSchool. Some of you may know us previously as Make Games With Us. We're aiming to build a replacement for the computer science degree because there's a lot of problems with the current college system and what they try to teach. A little backstory and why we decided to start this company. When I was in high school, when I was about your age, I was learning computer science in school, and then I decided to teach myself how to build iPhone apps. So when I was 16, I built an app. It was a little game called Helicopter, and it sold 50,000 copies in the App Store. Now this was absolutely the coolest thing I'd ever done because instead of just solving problems on tests or doing P-sets, I had actually created something real that thousands of people all around the world had bought, had written reviews about saying, hey, this is my favorite game ever. And being able to have that kind of impact at a young age is something that's very powerful. And it really shaped what I was then looking to get out of college and looking to get out of life. I went to UCLA for 1 year to study computer science, but when I got there I was pretty disappointed with the education. The main reason was it didn't feel like I was learning anything practical that would be relevant to my career in the future, and really I just wanted to build stuff, so I'd spend most of my time in my room hacking on cool different projects, some hardware for the iPhone and so on and so forth. But again, it really felt like I wasn't learning what I was meant to. So I ended up leaving college after 1 year and met up with my co-founder Jeremy, who I went to high school with. He also had a very similar background. He was at MIT, had built apps, and again had this like passion for just creating stuff. And so we ended up taking time off school and starting this company and went through a startup incubator called Y Combinator. Now, when we first started the company, we essentially wanted to build an experience that was very similar to the educational experience that we had had. Teach other people who are passionate about computer science, passionate about building stuff, teach them to actually create and ship their first real product. So for us, games was a very simple, self-contained product that you can build just to get exposed to it and get started. So we built a summer program that's been running for 3 years. The first year we had 30 students out of our living room. The next year we had 60 students splitting in between San Francisco and SF. And this past year we had 120 students in San Francisco, New York, and Palo Alto all learning to build iPhone games. So it's all students like you who have some exposure to computer science. Let's say you've taken an intro class or the AP in high school, and you, again, want to learn to actually create a full real product. The way the course works is the first 3 weeks, you go through cloning existing games. So like Flappy Bird, Conway's Game of Life, and Angry Birds, you basically get exposed to iPhone development through building games that other people have built. And the last 5 weeks of the program is entirely you building your own game. So you come to us saying, hey, I have this idea for a game. We help you scope it out so that's something that's relevant, something that's, that you will be able to build in the time that you have. And then you spend most of the rest of the time just building your own project and using our mentors and using our teachers as help anytime you're stuck or need help building additional features. And also through this program, we bring in speakers from industry. So we brought Alexis Ohanian, the founder of Reddit, and Sam Altman, partner at Y Combinator, to come in and give talks to students about what kind of things will they expect when they're being professional software developers. Talking about what it is like to be a programmer, what it is like to start a company, and so on and so forth. So really trying to get people exposed to not just the kind of things you learn in school, but how can you get exposed to what the professional world will be like. So the next thing we started doing this year, we're piloting a new program, and it's a full 1 year program. One of the things we learned over the past couple of years while doing these summer programs is that most other founders and developers in Silicon Valley had a very similar experience with college as we did. They did not find that they were learning very much practical stuff, and now, looking back, it doesn't seem like they're using most of the stuff that they're learning. So we wanted to basically build out from a summer program into longer term programs. Our eventual goal is to build a true college replacement, but right now we're piloting a gap year program with 11 students. And this program, you'll basically go over app development, web development, and computer science theory. So there are a lot of the important things that you do learn in college with theory and so on and so forth that we want to continue to teach. And so this program, the other really cool thing about this 1 year program is that you get very immersed in Silicon Valley. So you're learning again by building your own apps. You'll work on teams to get exposure to building software together. And again, these will be like production apps. You'll then go out, try to get users for this. It's almost as if you're building your own product or trying to do your own startup. And you're learning everything you need about tech through this experience. And simultaneously, we're also getting you heavily networked into Silicon Valley by bringing these speakers in, by having social events where you're meeting developers and founders because you're getting exposure to what that professional world is like, and you're starting to build the connections while you're going to school, while you're doing this program, that you will need and use in the future. So again, we have this summer program where you'll learn to build iPhone apps, and we have this one-year program where you'll learn web development, app development, and computer science theory, and again, just general career skills that will help you in your career. So if you're interested in becoming a software developer or a founder or a product manager, come talk to me during the networking thing, and I can talk to you more about our programs. Thanks.
Thanks. At this point, I want to thank all of our global partners for following along on the live stream. This is going to be the end of the global live stream. Ashu and many of our speakers are also going to be available, as he said, to answer individual questions during the networking break. And I'd also like to encourage you to make a donation if you can to help support this event and also future TeenTechSF events. A donation of only $5 will cover the cost of your participation. And if you donate $25 or more, either online, on the Eventbrite or in cash here today, you will also get a TeenTech Global t-shirt, and those are back there. And now, right before we go to the networking break, I want to show a video of one opportunity